The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrasser, the host. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Hit that subscribe button. We're all about education reform, what's disrupting and changing education for the better. Today I have a wonderful guest. She is the Wildlings Forest School co-founder in Australia. She's going to talk a little bit about that. Nicki Farrell is with us today. Nicki, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm from right across the world today.
Yes, yeah, we're splitting the globe today. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are doing these days.
So I am living in Sunshine Coast and Queensland Australia, and I'm the co-founder of Wildlings Forest School, but I'm also a homeschooling or unschooling mother and puppy parent. But I am trying to disrupt education here in our tiny little micro community by running a forest school, which is self-directed and child-led.
Nothing like self-directed, right? I think that's where we're going to go into that. But before we get into the school and how it's really different and changing things and, you know, the troubles and triumphs that you've had, let's talk a little bit about your educational path, right? So, you know, we have listeners throughout the world. Many of them are in the States. So can we walk through your educational path, where you grew up, where you learned, and, you know, what were some of the kind of great moments that maybe pivoted you into thinking, you know what, this forest school is something that is needed, and here's why?
I was really fortunate to grow up on a sheep and wheat farm in the middle of nowhere in Australia. And I'm talking 8 hours from the nearest capital city. My school had 60 children from prep to year 12, so the entirety of the school. I was taught by my netball coaches and family friends. So it was very much a tight-knit, tiny village community. It was very free range. So when we weren't at school, we were at home and we could drive cars and, you know, climb trees and shoot guns and all those kind of things growing up. But I think that's where the basis of forest schooling came from me, was that ability to move how I needed to move and use my outdoor voice whenever I needed to, and be in tune with the seasons. So obviously I didn't know that then, but it wasn't until I went further in my education and realized, you know, I learned more by, you know, we killed our own sheep for food. So I learned more from culling a sheep and quartering and butchering it there than I did in any biology lesson I ever went to. So it wasn't that I didn't learn a lot from biology, but when you've literally got a set of lungs in your hands and your father is showing you how a set of lungs works, then that's really memorable. I can still remember those lessons that weren't really lessons. So I guess that's the basis of my real in-depth curiosity, and I'm very much a kinesthetic learner as well, and that's probably due to my upbringing. Everything was hands-on and movement-based. I was an academic student. I really succeeded in school. I was a great, you know, an A grade student. I enjoyed school. Which is funny how now I look back and I've chosen to homeschool and unschool. So finished school. I didn't know many people that had gone to university where I grew up. So we had a handful of teachers and professionals, nurses, doctors, friendships and whatnot. But I didn't know that I was going to be good enough, despite being an A grade student, to get into college, which here in Australia, if you're an A grade student, essentially you're going to get into most courses that you need. Long story short, ended up at what we call TAFE, which is, I don't know how to really compare that in the States, but it's, you know, plumbing, hairdressing apprenticeships, and I did outdoor recreation there. And really that was a gap year for me. It was a reason to go and do some education, but I knew that this course was going to be doing a lot of fantastic trips and I was going to learn a lot of really great skills. So I had a 2-year holiday really with a little bit of theory in there. Which my parents paid for, which I thought was fantastic. But again, I loved that. I loved that kind of learning where we were outdoors and we were hiking for 7 days and a thunderstorm would come through and someone would have a minor injury and we had to deal with that on the spot. And that was, again, really memorable and really great for leadership skills, I found, and really stepping up and taking on responsibility. You know, if you look at the Montessori theory of education, for me, it was almost like that passage of leaving and breaking away and turning into an adult. Those 2 years and all those trips really made me step up in an age where I could have quite easily not, I think. And then I went overseas. I actually lived in Colorado and Breckenridge for a couple of years and did the snowboard ski thing, and was broke and had to, again, work my way and work out how to live without my parents. Came back and worked in recruitment, thought I'd enjoy working, helping people get jobs, but that's not how it works here at all. People that really wanted jobs didn't get them. And then I ended up at university teaching. So originally when I'd finished school, I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a teacher, but I don't think I want to go straight from kindergarten, straight to school, straight to university teaching. Particularly, I wanted to be a high school teacher. So 6 years later, probably 8 years later, I went back to university. And I think that's what that gap really helped me see, and working in other jobs really helped me see that we really take a lot of responsibility away from our teenagers. You know, we graduate here around 17, 18 years old, which I think is pretty similar, but you know, people are still, our teenagers with beards who are 6'4" still have to ask me for permission to go to the bathroom quite often. So, you know, it wasn't the case in my classroom. It was an open, if you need to go, just give me the heads up that you're out of the classroom. But, you know, it's a bodily function. You go and you deal with that. But, you know, we were expecting these people to vote in the next year, to drive cars and make decisions about drinking and drugs and alcohol and relationships, but we weren't letting them be autonomous in the classroom. I think I gave you the example when we spoke about, so I ended up being a PE, so physical education and English teacher, which is probably a strange combo, but it really tied up my love of reading and then my love of being outdoors. But I'd have these big, burly boys in my class, these teenagers that wanted to be motorbike mechanics, and they loved it. That's what they lived for. And I was having to teach them Shakespeare when I knew that I could teach them the same transferable English skills, the grammar, the spelling, whatever we needed to teach them, I could do with a motorbike assignment. But I had to. I was restricted as their teacher. So despite my best intentions, I started feeling really frustrated about the system not being able to individualize. Like here, I don't know about in the States, but here we get slammed as teachers about we need to differentiate. We need to differentiate for each child. And then we try and they say, oh, well, no, we have to be able to moderate. So everybody has to do the exact same assignment. So I found that really incredibly frustrating because I knew that I could get that engagement and I could build that relationship with those teenagers if I could show them just a tiny bit of give and take, but quite often there was no give and take. So. And then I left.
Yeah, right. And then, well, that's funny. Just kind of a side note. Today, I just spoke with a young man in one of my classes, and you know, we were doing the design thinking piece, and you know, I'm in the system here in the States, and I was like, tell me something that frustrates you. And of course, you know, the kid was like, math. And I'm like, okay.
Of course.
So we unpacked that. And I think one of the interesting thing was, just like you said, just like these two guys who wanted to, you know, work on cars and whatnot, he was just like, I love cars. And I was like, so if there was a trigonometry that is attached to automobiles, would you be more interested? He's like, yeah, I would be 100%. So yeah, that's so interesting, the tangible piece of this. So now you've moved over to Wildlings and the Wildlings Forest School. Tell us a little bit about that and how you actually pull students outside into nature. And I just wish they had a school like this when I was a kid, but and I have to get over after this entire pandemic to see this. But yeah, tell us a little bit about, you know, the beginnings and where you are now in Wildlings Forest School.
So to backtrack a little, I was teaching, and I had really no big issues with teaching until I had children. So the hypocrite in me came out as soon as I had children. I started looking for daycare centres, and I just couldn't find one that had, my boys are, I'm going to say, you know, neurotypical, they're active boys, but I wouldn't say they were overly rambunctious, but they needed to move. And the local daycare centres around my area were while they had all the resources, there just wasn't space for them to run and be free and use their outdoor voices. So I kept looking and couldn't find anything. So we decided to change our whole lifestyle up, and I'd go back part-time, and my husband would have the kids part days and some days, and I would have them the others. And eventually I met a friend. We ended up starting a home kindy because we couldn't find what we wanted, which was essentially just meeting regularly to play outdoors. And then we were like, you know what? We'll just start something. And we'll just start it for a couple of friends that are interested. And it's that old saying, build it and they'll come. And that's exactly what happened. Friends of friends came, and friends of friends of friends came. And so we moved from my house, and then we moved to the PCYC, which is essentially like a YMCA here. And thankfully, they're really on board, because where we started, the church technically owns the land, but we needed car parking and toileting. So we literally split between two places, and we hire both sets of land, essentially. And we were wondering how we'd go, talking to the pastor and the police officer about these 3-year-olds starting fires and using pocket knives. And we didn't think we'd get far, but we were just really fortunate that, you know, the sergeant there is outdoorsy, and so was the pastor. And they were just both really on board. So we started there, and we started just one morning a week. And then we had friends of friends say, well, playgroup's great and kindy's great, but I've got school-age children that, you know, could really do with a mental health day once a week, or, you know, they'd like to come during the holidays. So we started holiday programs. We've now got a homeschool program. We run professional development for educators, which is what I find most purposeful, because we can only reach so many children at a time, you know, but when we reach teachers and the teachers take it back to their school and they're teaching other teachers, then that's how we know that this message will spread. But essentially, we go down into the forest every morning, not every morning. So we only run a couple of days a week here on the Sunshine Coast, but we also now run in Brisbane, our capital city here, and it is taking off there. It's, you know, it's a bit more urban, it's a bit more densely populated. There's less access to parks and fields, and people are trying to meet like-minded families that are okay with risky play, and they're okay with children doing things that might make some adults gasp in today's society. But I'm going to argue there that we did as children, you know.
Right. I mean, you think about the things that, I think about, you know, I don't want to get into it because it's illegal, but like, we had no. But you're right. I mean, you do take those risks, and there's smaller rewards and things like that. So how long has the school been up and running for?
So we've been running for 4 years now, and because of the PD that we've been doing, and others, it's not just us, don't get me wrong, we're starting to see this really change, particularly in our micro community, the government approved kindies. So they're coming to us, and they're now running bush kindies or forest kindies within those daycare centres and those community kindies, which is great, because then what's happening, we're getting these really passionate parents say, well, little Johnny or little Peter has been whittling and starting fires since he's been 3 years old, and now we get to school and he can't even hold a stick. You know, why aren't we letting these children, why aren't we teaching children to be safe with these things rather than just saying no? Because at some point they're going to find a stick, they're going to find a lighter, they're going to find a pocket knife, and they're not going to know what to do with it. So it's really great, because nothing changes in education really without parent power. So if we can start it now, educating these little people, but really we're educating the parents about what can be and what is safe and what children need, then they're the ones pushing it in the school system. The
one thing that we've been pushing here in the States is the legislation, right? I think it's wonderful that the government came to you. Was that parental pressure kind of saying like, this is something that's really cool, or how do you feel like that came about? Because I know a lot of us over here in the States were like, there are so many great programs, yet the laws are not there yet to make. How do you think that played out? It wasn't pure luck, was it?
Well, no. So it started about 10 years ago, Bush Kindy down in Melbourne, and that came from Scandinavia, which came from and then went to the UK, and then we had UK providers come here. But somewhere along the line, obviously the government's caught whiff of this, that outdoor learning is becoming a bit of a thing. We've got the most incredible spaces here, and our schools are incredibly resourced for outdoor learning, but our teachers aren't. They haven't been trained. A lot of them don't feel safe taking 25, 28 children out, particularly if there's going to be fire or knives. They just haven't had the training. So there was a bit of funding. We had a not-for-profit called Nature Play Queensland pop up, and they've done an incredible amount of training. So that's really led the way, but that was government funded. So I actually don't know who was in there and who was the champion in there pushing that, but I'd love to thank them and take them out for a coffee.
Yeah, bring them to the States too. Yeah, I'll buy them coffee over there.
Yeah. It hasn't fully changed legislation yet. So the risk assessments and the paperwork is still horrendous, but it can be done. So, we still run camps, all schools run camps and excursions, and we have Bunsen burners in science labs, and we use sharp objects I don't know what we call it there, but man arts and technology and things like that. So we've got risk assessments for those things. They've just never directly been applied to outdoor learning. So if you can pull them apart and work with your education department, then generally it's there. It's just not been given the name of outdoor learning. So that's what we found here anyway. And we just need those champions to start pushing it.
Is there plans, I know you're with younger students, but is there plans like throughout the entire, gamut of students? Because I'm a secondary educator, and I know, you were as well. What does that look like? Maybe not right now, but can a program like this be pulled into, a different age range, I should ask?
Yeah, look, that's what that looks like is my dream, but I would often take my students out for English just to read outside, and the difference in their comprehension and understanding just with that, because again, just being taken outdoors in the spring or autumn in the fall sunshine makes that lesson memorable, which is really sad that just taking the children out and the students outdoors makes a difference. But it is absolutely transferable to older children. We've had quite a few disengaged student groups come through, and it gives particularly those students that perhaps aren't engaged or find academic schooling really difficult, it gives them the chance to succeed, and it gives them that feeling of confidence that they're not hopeless, they're not dumb, they're not, they're good at something, and to be recognised by their peers that they're good at something. I think that's really wonderful. But take a biology lesson. Where else would you do it but outdoors? Science, flora, fauna, it's all there. Seasons, weather. It drives me crazy that Vicky, my business partner, is a science and marine biologist and teacher, and she said, I used to open up the textbook and look outside and just go, why? What are we doing? And I know you understand it's there, but how do we make it so that is normal, but it's also not an extra stress on teachers, because teachers are stressed enough. They're overburdened. The curriculum's too full. There's not enough time in the calendar. So how do we make it easy for teachers?
Right. I mean, again, like I'm a tangible learner. I love to hands-on things, and I remember those as well. Like, rather than just, going through checking the box off. Like if I have a forest in my hands, I'm looking and I can see the things in biology, I can connect that. And most of summer camps and different things like that are the things that I remember. So, so from here on out, working with schools and helping broaden this out, unpack that a little bit. Do you have like programs where you're teaching? How are you teaching teachers? What is that? Is that like a PD? How does that look? And then where can people, connect with you worldwide? Because I think this is a great program.
I'm very biased, but I actually find that teaching this way, you get to build better relationships, and so your work as a teacher is so much easier. And we just don't have behaviour issues outside like we do indoors. And I can't emphasize that enough. It's, they can use their outdoor voices. Children that have sensory issues, sensory overload with bright lights or closed-in walls, they don't get that outside. And there's space. So when they need to retreat, they can just move over to a quiet sit spot and find that space. But a lot of it definitely has a lot to do with the self-direction of the classes. But, to get in with the schools, it's mainly professional development and workshops. So we run them for schools and daycare centres in kindy. We do an introduction to outdoor learning or bush kindy. We do introduction to fire and bush cooking. We do hand tools, which includes whittling. And I don't know, you work with teenage boys, but I have never, ever heard the silence like I have in a whittling circle of 20, 30 boys. It's incredible. It is a sight to be seen, and the tongues are out, in focus. And it's just this beautiful, there's something very ancient and primal about sitting in circle and the conversations that the teenagers are having in those circles and the relationships and the bonds that are being built in those circles. And again, you can't put a price on that, and it doesn't fit into our tidy little curriculum boxes, but gosh, it helps make that classroom environment so much easier. So, it doesn't have to be an outdoor learning school 5 days a week. We've got many schools that either dip in 1 lesson a week, 2 lessons a week, 2 hours a week. Some do it fortnightly. We do try and encourage that it's a minimum of 2 hours a week. So a lot of people will do it on the end of the week, Friday afternoon, when not much gets learned. They'll take it outside, but they'll still make it relevant to whatever they're learning at the time. So whether it's measurement or geometry or, hypotheses, it's all there. It's just a matter of letting them outdoors and letting them get all the benefits of nature. We're animals, so we need sunlight and fresh air and water and care. That's what we need to thrive. So It's all there.
Yeah, it is, right? And it's free outside.
It's free.
I don't have to power that up. I don't know.
No, and if you're on school grounds, you're covered by insurance. So, and if you're on excursion, you can still be covered by your insurance. So, Australia, I think we're the second most litigious society after you guys. So if we can do it,
we're pretty litigious.
Yeah. But it's there, and there's ways to do it, and your insurers will cover it. Particularly if you're doing it with a school, is actually easier than it is for me as a private business to do it without doing it under a school, because particularly government schools are pretty hard to touch. They're covered. So yeah. But you can find us on Instagram or Facebook, but we're Wildlings with an L, forestschool.com. But we'd love to help run PD. We do consults via Zoom, just like we're doing now. And we've got a lot of interest from the States. I'm probably running 1 a week at the moment from the States. So fingers crossed, it's coming your way.
Absolutely. Well, I'll put all your information up down in the notes and everything so people can connect with you. I love it. What were those 4 things that you listed? I just wanted to end on that. You had these.
Yeah, so we have outdoor learning, fire and bush cooking, hand tools, which includes pen knives, and we do a cubbies, knots, and shelters as well.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I can't wait to learn more about what's happening at Wildlings, and definitely if you're in the States listening, you want to check out Nicki in the school. I can attest as an educator, and yes, being outside in sports as a golf coach with boys, there's something different. There's a connection there, and it's truly, truly amazing. Well, you're doing truly amazing things, disrupting education inside the school, bringing it outside, bringing reality, the humanistic, the nature approach. And Nicki, thank you so much for hanging out with us on Disrupt Education today.
My pleasure. Have a great evening.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate you. Leave a comment. Thumbs ups always help. And we'll see you next time on Disrupt Education.